What's the problem again? Why is there a meltdown?
Well, I mean, certainly free speech has traditionally been a broadly philosophically liberal value held by the liberal left and the liberal right, but particularly strongly in many moments of American history on the left. When you think of the free speech movement at Berkeley in the 1960s, and I watched with horror in the last years as my friends on the left have somehow decided that free speech is a conservative value, that it's something that they should criticize, or that it's something that they shouldn't own. I think that everybody who believes in the Constitution, everybody who believes in the basic principles of our political system should be agreed about this. So yeah, there's a funny kind of evolution in the last little bit where for the last years, I've always heard people say, if you're worried about arbitrary decisions for what to censor and not to censor on Twitter, then you're really misunderstanding the First Amendment, because Twitter is a private company and they can do whatever they want. I think the response to that is that is legally true, but that there is a very real concern when one of the most important public fora for where people debate politics has these capricious forms of censorship, some unaccountable people in Silicon Valley making random decisions for what is censored and what is not censored. Now, I think that's a general problem with Twitter. It'll remain if Elon Musk buys it, but certainly if he lives up to his promise of censoring fewer things and being much more consistent in how the platform is run, that would be a positive thing.
I remember when this happened a couple of years ago. Facebook started to debate. It was when Donald Trump was running for re-election, if memory serves. Should we start policing the ads, the political ads? Should we be fact-checking the political ads? And I remember thinking, this is the most absurd thing I've ever heard. Who doesn't know that political ads are full of spin? You could be uncharitable and say lies. They're politicians. They're trying to convince us to elect them. We know how the game works. We don't need Mark Zuckerberg over at Facebook or Elon Musk or anybody else at Twitter trying to help us decipher any of this. That's typically what the other side is for, to say, he's a liar. This is not true. Let me prove it to you. Now, it's like this utopian world. We talked about this with our last guest, Charles C.W. Cook, in which, Barack Obama is going to decide what's disinformation and what's not. Or maybe it's Elon Musk, or maybe it's still Mark Zuckerberg. It's not going to work. It's not the way our country was designed, to try to censor this speech, but allow this other speech, but then that goes too far, pull it back. It's the marketplace of ideas. You get on your soapbox and you yell your ideas louder than that guy yells his ideas, and then let people decide. We've gotten so far away from that.
Well, look, the reason why attacks on free speech are often appealing to people is that they start with a sensible thought, which is that lots of horrible things are said in the public sphere, lots of wrong things are said, lots of things that might mislead people to take actions that seriously harm themselves. And wouldn't it be wonderful if we could just stop all of that? But of course, the problem is that I have my opinion of what's bad thought and what's misleading and what's going to make people act in bad ways. And so if I was the censor, perhaps I'd be fine with that. But of course, I'm never going to be the censor, and I'm never going to be willing to trust whatever committee of people is formed, whether it is some random faceless people in Silicon Valley, as is essentially the case now, or whether it is some publicly elected committee. I will never trust those people to decide for me what is in fact worthwhile speech and what is worthless speech. And then, when you do have these restrictions on free speech, it has really bad impacts on the political system, though we should be worried about much more than we are at the moment. First of all, it makes everybody paranoid. It makes everybody think that their side is being censored more than the other. I think you can see that on Twitter. Now, I think there is some bias probably, but even if it weren't, right? Even if it's just they're trying to ban the 10 worst actors on the left and the 10 worst actors on the right, they're always going to make some mistakes. That's inevitable. And so if I'm on the left and I see the people they're banning on the left and they're saying, well, these 10 people, fine, perhaps I can see that it's reasonable to ban them. But what about those 2 people where they made a mistake? That's really outrageous. How dare they censor these people who are just good faith actors? I feel like they're really out to get me. Now, if on the right they're doing the same thing, they ban 12 people, of which 10 are bad actors and 2 are actually reasonable, I probably am less aware of that. I don't know those accounts. I don't follow them. And so I think, I'm sure that that's fine. So even if they actually were applying censorship in an even way, both sides would end up with the impression that They're the persecuted ones. They're the ones that are being treated unfairly. And so that actually is going to drive more pressure in our politics, more paranoia, more mutual hatred. And it undermines the core premise of our democracy, because the core premise is you might hate the other side. You might think the stakes of the election are really high, but you also know, you know what? If they win, I might be really upset, but they get to govern for 4 years and I get to make my case. And if I convince my fellow citizens, then I get to govern, my guys get to govern 4 years from now. If you start to worry that if I lose the next elections, I might stop being able to make my case, I might stop being able to say what I want to in public, then the incentive to not accept the outcome of the election, to say I'm going to fight in any way I can, including extra legal ways, in order to stay in power, becomes much, much higher.
You know, I think about it, like if you look at social media, for sure, the left controls it. I mean, there's no question that, you know, liberals are controlling those organizations from Twitter to Facebook and Insta, same ownership, and Google and so on. But, you know, the right has a pretty big presence on Facebook in particular. And the right has found a way in the digital world to have their voices heard. You know, I mean, there are all sorts of places now where you can, whatever. I mean, the podcast, this is one forum, but there are lots of ways. And like, I'm thinking about my pals at the Daily Wire. That website's become extremely popular. For years, Drudge was more right wing. I don't know how you describe him these days. He's like anti-Trump. I'm not sure exactly where he falls. But my point is, there's a way of getting your voice out there, right? So the conservatives, as much as they do feel censored, there is still a way of getting your voice out there. I'm surprised to hear you even suggest that the left feels censored, because, you know, from where I sit, they're the ones doing the censoring. They're not the censored.
Sure, but this is the problem with this discourse, right? So I see lots of people share lists of what posts do particularly well on Facebook. And then they say, what do you mean Facebook is left-leaning? Actually, this is a right-wing cabal. Look, it's all of those Daily Wire stories that are in the top 10 every day. This must mean that there's a right-wing bias. So once you have these unaccountable mechanisms.
Well, I'm talking about ownership. Just to be clear, I'm making a distinction between the ownership and their mission and the people who actually use Facebook. Sure. Yeah.
No, I wasn't disagreeing with you. I was saying that I'm seeing people on the left who are sharing lists of what does particularly well on Facebook. I think Facebook publishes a list of the 10 top performing posts every day, or at least there's some way of getting to that. Mm-hmm. And so I see a lot of people on the left sharing those lists and saying, you know what? Actually, there must be some kind of secret conspiracy where Facebook is promoting those posts, because, how can those right-wing posts be doing the best? It must be because there's some bias against the left and we're somehow being censored. So the problem is that when you have these platforms with, algorithms which nobody quite understands and some real censorship going on, everybody always feels like the victim, whether or not it's realistic. And so what we need is for those platforms to very clearly show that they are not favoring one form of content over another, and that they're not censoring based on the content of political
Well, we know
speech.
That they are. They can't show that because we know, right? Like the jig is up. Like Twitter's caught. Like there's no way for them to deny that, because look at the big stories that they've suppressed. You know, why was Hunter Biden suppressed? Why wasn't there an apology?
Sure, but that's why I think that Twitter and Facebook and other social media platforms should essentially hold themselves to the First Amendment. Now, they are private companies. They're not legally obliged to follow the standards of the First Amendment. But I think, and clearly they do need to remove certain kinds of content, like child pornography or direct threats of violence and so on. There's certain things we all agree should not be on those platforms. So there's need for some moderation. But I think that moderation should basically be as content neutral as possible and as minimal as possible. And the way to do that is basically for these companies to say, we are going to try and hold ourselves to a First Amendment standard. That's going to involve some difficult calls. We have some kind of accountable committee that ultimately is responsible for adjudicating the most important cases. And that, I think, would take a lot of the heat out of this discussion and give Americans confidence that the most important public fora we have for debating politics aren't biased in favor of their political opponent.
Are the high fuel costs putting a damper on your summer vacation plans? Are you rethinking things? From higher prices at the pump to a jump in airfare, it's getting more expensive to get away for a week. But what if you could soak up those vacation vibes year-round without having to travel ever? Get yourself a Michael Phelps Swim Spa by Master Spas, and you can do it. Whether you want to stay close to home this summer, or just want to extend your break, or just want to make your summer experience more enjoyable, a Michael Phelps Swim Spa by Master Spas can transform your backyard into an oasis. You deserve it. It combines the benefits of a pool with the therapy of a hot tub. Michael Phelps Swim Spas by Master Spas have a water current so you can swim. You can like do the laps without having a lap pool. You can do aquatic exercises, and you can just have fun with the kids. The water buoyancy will relieve pressure on aching joints. And so it's actually a very nice way to exercise. You can enjoy pure relaxation over in the massage therapy seats of the swim spa if you're just looking to take things down a notch. This is going to reinvent your family time. You're going to love it. Your family and your friends will too. Michael Phelps Swim Spas by Master Spas come in a variety of sizes to complement almost any yard, even if it's a small backyard. And since it's heated, you can use it year-round in any climate. Michael Phelps Swim Spas are 100% made in the USA by Master Spas. That's the world's largest swim spa manufacturer. Go to masterspas.com. Put in the promo code MK to save $1,000 on a Michael Phelps Swim Spa or $500 on a Master Spas hot tub. That's masterspas.com. Promo code MK. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.